As a goddess.
Yep.
Told him to.
Absolutely. Well, if you can't tell, at this point, Magdalena has completely convinced herself that she is an Incan goddess.
All right.
She's so delusional, and I don't know if it's the combination of the peyote and the weed. I'm gonna assume she had some mental health issues going as well. But she's believing that she's a reincarnated Incan goddess and that all the things that she's doing is completely justified. And of course, not knowing about Incan practices, she starts going off the old Aztec sacrificial rituals that she had been told about as a kid. So she starts having these caves filled with torches, all 50 of the people in the town surrounding the altar. And now she's moved on to human sacrifices. And it's usually someone who's spoken out against her publicly in the town.
Yeah, they're the first to go.
Yeah, that she sacrifices. And because she's trying to follow the Aztec rituals, the first thing she does is cut their heart out while they're still alive.
That's brutal.
Mm-hmm. Then she has everybody start drinking peyote. And then all the townspeople have to take turns basically cutting off parts of this human sacrifice. Meanwhile, they're collecting the blood in this chalice that they are all drinking as well. Then it ends in like a huge town orgy.
Of course.
Yep. That's usually how we end our sacrifices as well. Not to mention, like I said, she liked to burn cannabis and just let it waft around.
Yeah.
She was doing this in this cave. So they're basically hotboxing this cave, drinking peyote. I can't even imagine what this looks like to an outsider.
I keep forgetting this is the 60s.
Yeah. Well, speaking of, so on May 1963, I forgot this is where this story's going. I should read my research before I actually start telling it again. Yeah, so in May of 1963, while one of these rituals are in full swing, this 14-year-old kid named Sebastian Guerrero had been exploring caves. He's like 15 miles away from his town, so I don't know who the fuck explores 15 miles away from a town.
Yeah.
But he was, and stumbles upon this ritual and is like, what the fuck?
Oh, shit.
And he literally runs 15 miles all the way back home straight to his police station and is like, there are some fucking vampires out in the caves killing people. And the police are like, you're 14, you're an idiot, you know nothing, you're probably high. You know how all police do with everything.
Brush it off.
But he's so adamant that there is a police officer named Luis Martinez, and he's like, fine, I will follow you back there tomorrow, and we will check it out together. Awesome. So they decide that they're going to leave first thing in the morning. They head out. Days go by, the two of them still have not returned.
Oh, no.
So the police are like, okay, something must be going on. They involve the state police and parts of the Mexican army, and they kind of just approach this town, sending 1 or 2 officers in to try to figure out what the hell's going on. And when they get there, they found Magdalena and Santos Hernandez, one of the brothers, in this farmhouse surrounded by weed and so stoned that they can't even really talk.
Oh.
So they go to arrest him, and Santos takes off running, and they just shot and killed him, which I thought was quite the escalation because they haven't found anything else at this point but the weed. So the police move into this town. All the townspeople flee out to the caves, and they end up having a shootout with police. Well, they're outnumbered, and of course the police end up moving in on them and arrest everybody. After searching the town, police found the bodies of 14-year-old Sebastian Guerrero and the cop Luis Martinez. They both had their hearts cut out.
God damn.
I know, and they also found the dismembered bodies of 6 other victims. The other Hernandez brother was also found dead in the town, but it came out later that one of the townspeople, Jesus Rubio, he had caught on to the scam and basically told the brother, let me in on it or I'm going to rat you out to everybody. And the brother said no, so he killed him.
Okay.
And it must have happened
right before the cops got there.
Yeah, that's the only thing that made sense to me, but I couldn't find anything about that. When questioned by police, the people of the town would not snitch on Magdalena or the Hernandez brothers.
I guess that's pretty loyal.
I think they're brainwashed. Yeah,
Yeah, that's absolutely what happened.
These are just normal fucking farms people just putting in an honest day's work on the farm, living their just best life, true selves, trading amongst each other, not a care in the world. Maybe winter. I don't know, whatever farmers worry about. When these guys descend and basically turn them into
their playthings.
Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yeah.
Well, they're still thinking that they're gods and a goddess, so that's why they're not snitching.
Yeah.
Because they're brainwashed. Which meant the cops could really only charge them for the murder of the cop and the boy.
Gotcha.
The other victims, because I don't know how they could pin that on the brothers and Magdalena, but that's what they charged them for. And they couldn't, the other victims, I guess they didn't have any evidence to suggest that they were responsible for their deaths.
I'm sure the cops kind of saw the whole situation and realized what was going on, that these people had kind of taken over the town.
Right.
And realized they were responsible even though they wouldn't rat them out.
Right. So I don't know why they couldn't just go ahead and charge them for all the victims found, because there were 6 people found.
Yeah. Yeah.
Regardless, there's a trial. Magdalena and their surviving Hernandez brothers, Santos, and Eliezer, remember him? The pimp brother. They were all sentenced to 50 years in jail. The remaining townspeople were charged of gang murder or lynching, and they all received 30 years in jail.
Wow.
And even though there were only 8 bodies found, the police have linked more than 16 victims to them. Not to mention the girls that were sold into sex trafficking.
Yeah.
And here's what's crazy to me, because this is the end of the story.
Okay, yeah.
A lot happened in that story.
Uh-huh.
From the time that the brothers arrived in that town till the time that they were arrested, all of it happened in 6 weeks.
Are you serious?
Yeah, all of that happened in 6 weeks.
Holy
time.
shit.
That's a lot of shit to go down in just 6 weeks.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, so she ended up going to prison for 50 years. I don't really know what happened to her. A lot of people say that she died in jail, but there was nothing that I could find on it.
If she got 50 years and this was 63, she'd be out now.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I don't know if she's out or she died in jail. But because of this whole thing, Magdalena, the High Priestess of Blood, has become like an old wives' tale.
Oh, really?
And it's almost like and I don't know if anybody is from Mexico and knows this for certain, please let us know. But people say it like, if you're kind of, let's say you're dating a guy that everybody thinks is a douche, but you're kind of charmed by them, they'll be like, oh, it's like the High Priestess of Blood. Like, It's kind of like a saying.
I got you.
In that area, I guess. But I thought that was so crazy because it happened in the 60s. Never heard anything about it.
Yeah.
Feels like one of those stories
story.
just like kind of swept away. Look away, guys.
It's dark.
Yeah. And think about how creepy that town would be, because everybody that was in it, regardless of age, went to jail afterwards. So nobody inhabited that town. Wow. But a lot of people died there.
That's crazy.
They need to send the ghost trackers in there.
Oh, yeah.
Into those caves.
That place is haunted for sure.
Mm-hmm. Like sacrifice deaths.
Yeah.
Sacrificial deaths. That's spoopy.
That's very spoopy.
So there you go. I can't bring the long stories every time.
No, that's okay.
So what do you have?
I have a story about Jerry Michael Williams.
Stop pausing and looking at me. I don't know this person. God, every time.
Okay. So Jerry Michael Williams, we're going to call him Mike, because that's what his family and friends called him.
Okay.
He was born October of 1969. He grew up with an older brother in a double-wide trailer. He and his brother worked at grocery stores and saved money and went to North Florida Christian High School. They helped.
Is it like a private school or something?
It sounds like it.
Is that what
it doesn't really matter. But
saved money for? Or did you just throw some weird sentence structure in there and I got lost in it?
Yeah, I think that's what happened.
Okay, they saved money.
Saved money.
They went to a Christian high school.
Yeah.
Okay.
And their parents, instead of buying a house, they lived in that double wide to save money for their kids and stuff.
Smart.
Mike, he played football, was on the student council, and when he was in high school, he met Denise. Do you know who she is?
No.
After high school, he went to Florida State University and became a property appraiser. He stayed with Denise throughout this time they dated. They were high school sweethearts.
Aw.
And in 1994, Mike married Denise, and he continued to work constantly. He started to make $200,000 a year in 1999.
Wow, that's big money.
He was doing well.
That's big money now.
Yeah, it is. He and Denise had a daughter. Well, December of 2000 rolls around, and Denise and Mike, they tell Mike's mother and brother that they are planning on having another kid later the next year. They also talked about how they were planning a cruise in Hawaii that spring, and he was also expected to travel to Jamaica for work near the end of the year.
Okay.
So 2 days after that conversation with Mike's mother, Denise called her father to tell him that Mike hadn't come back from duck hunting.
How long had he been gone?
I think this was near the last part of the day,
Okay.
like mid-afternoon. And when you go hunting and stuff, I think typically you go early in the morning.
Right.
So some people, they go looking for him where he often went duck hunting. And they found his SUV, a Bronco, and a search began by the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission.
Okay.
They're like the
Right.
fish and wildlife people. Unfortunately, a storm rolled in and the search had to be called off. It was a huge cold front, and this is wintertime, so it's freezing. Once they could search again, the helicopter pilot spotted Mike's boat out in the water, and it was just over like 200 feet from the boat ramp. And once the searchers got to the boat, they found Mike's shotgun still in its case in the boat.
Like, okay. I mean, still in its case, he could have used it and put it back in its case
Sure.
to go back home.
Yeah.
Okay.
This lake was named Stump Field by the locals because of all the tree stumps that were above and below the water line. So what they think happened is that Mike was driving his boat, his motorboat, and had hit a stump and got thrown into the water. If he was wearing his waders, they would have filled up with water and kind of pulled him down.
Yeah, but can't you pop those off real easy?
Yeah.
Okay. Because they're just overalls, right?
Yeah.
All right.
But that's kind of what they were,
Right.
the lines they were going along.
Well, and he could have been thrown from the boat and hit his head on a really shallow stump. He could have gone pretty far out, tried to pull his waders off, get back. I mean, if it was freezing outside, he could have succumbed to the cold water.
Right, right. Well, after 10 days of searching, they
his
found...
poor wife.
I know. They found a camouflaged hat. And it was possibly could have been Mike's, but it couldn't. There was no DNA that tied it to Mike.
Okay. Well, did the wife recognize it?
His best friend that he did go hunting with from time to time was asked about it, and he's the one that's like, yeah, it could have been Mike's. I'm not sure Denise was asked about it or not.
Or it could just be a generic camo hat that anybody could have.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's been 10 days they found that hat. Typically when someone drowns, gases start to build up and they start to float back to the surface. Well, it's been 10 days and he still hasn't come up. This was the first of 80 known deaths in that lake.
Oh my gosh.
Where a body was never found.
Wow.
Yeah, they were always able to recover it. So this kind of blew him away. It was believed that since there were alligators in the area, he got eaten.
Ugh.
So the search, it had gotten called off. And the day after the search ended, Denise, Mike's wife, had arranged a memorial service for him. So in June, and he went missing in December, in June, a fisherman found a pair of waders in the lake, and divers were called in. Because people aren't just going to leave their waders. I mean, I'm sure they're expensive and stuff.
Right, but why didn't they pull in divers before this?
Oh, I'm sorry, they did.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
And they couldn't, nothing at all. Near the spot where the waders were found, at the bottom of the lake, they found a hunting jacket. Inside the pocket was the hunting license that had Mike's signature on it. They also found a flashlight down there. And these items didn't look like they had been in the water for as long as they should have been, if they'd been in there since December. And in fact, the flashlight, they turned it on and it worked.
Oh, that's suspect.
Also, on the waders and the jacket, there was no teeth marks. You know, they had kind of assumed that story got put into their heads and everything, and they just kind of ran with it. No teeth marks or anything from alligators. So a week later, Denise petitioned to have him declared legally dead, and she claimed Mike's life insurance policies, which was about 1.